If you're the owner/operator of a human brain, you know that it loves to organize information into neat little categories. Grouping things together makes it easier for us to navigate our way through this wild, wacky world. Imagine walking into a bookstore or a library where the books aren't arranged alphabetically, by genre, or using that stupid Dewey dumbass number system. Even if you already know what book you want, it's going to take you all day to find it. Or imagine going to a restaurant where the menu isn't organized into entrees, sides, drinks, and desserts, but instead is just randomly thrown together. Ordering is going to be a huge pain in the ass because you're going to have to go through every single item on the menu just to find those mozzarella sticks that you want instead of simply jumping to the appetizer section. When it comes to most things, our brains greatly prefer order to chaos, and music is no exception. We like our music like we like our books and our burgers. Organized. By lumping kinda similar sounding music together, we can organize songs and artists into broad but different groups that we call genres. Rock, country, hip-hop, electronic, and classical are examples of musical genres. Within each of these broad groups, you'll find several distinct subgenres, and within some of those subgenres, you'll find even smaller subgenres, some of them with subgenres of their own. In this video, we're going to explore some of these sub-sub-subgenres of music that you might not know exist. Most of them probably shouldn't, but they all do. Sometimes referred to as mini-genres or microgenres, many of these sub-sub-subgenres totally suck. And as soon as you subscribe to this channel, we can get started. Number 1. Pirate metal. Well, shiver me timbers. Pirate metal is actually a thing. This might seem far-fetched to some of you landlubbers out there, but it's true. Pirate metal is a sub-sub-subgenre of rock music that combines elements of folk metal, thrash, and power metal with sea shanties and nautical-themed lyrics. This microgenre first emerged during the 1980s with European bands like Running Wild releasing piracy-themed metal. But it wasn't until the mid-2000s when the Scottish band Ailstorm took the metal world by storm that pirate metal really began to set sail. After Ailstorm's success, piracy-themed music began popping up all over the world, including the US, with bands like Swashbuckle and the Dead Crew of Oddwood. Now, while pirates are cool and metal is cool, if I'm being honest, the idea of pirate metal sounds really fucking stupid. But bands like Ailstorm make it work by taking themselves about as seriously as old Blackbeard here takes facial hair grooming. See, I'd mistakenly assumed that if I'd batten down the hatches and listen to some pirate metal, I'd think "Thar she blows" and be willing to walk the plank just to get away from it. But after hearing songs like Fucked with an Anchor by Ailstorm, this scallywag got hornswoggled into actually liking some pirate metal. While it's true that dead men tell no tales, pirate metal bands tell tales about the high seas, searching for booty, and making guys walk the plank. Sometimes I like to listen to pirate metal at the gym while drinking high C and looking at women's booties in between sets of doing the plank. But matey, pirate metal isn't the only weird subgenre of metal. Let's explore a different one that's far more sinister, disgusting, and downright evil than pirate metal could ever hope to be. Number 2. Unblack Metal, aka Christian metal, aka white metal. From Elvis to Eminem, white people have been appropriating musical styles that originated in black culture for decades. But this phenomenon isn't limited to just artists. The entire subgenre of white metal was stolen from its black counterpart. Christians might not be allowed to covet their neighbors' wives, but apparently it's okay for them to covet their neighbor's metal subgenre because Christian metalheads took the wholesome purity of black metal and perverted it to fit their hippy-dippy Christian ideals. By stealing the fast tempos, distorted guitars, blast beats, and growling vocals of black metal, but changing the lyrics from being about Satan, death, and destruction to salvation, love, and resurrection, Christian metalheads transfigured black metal into unblack metal, aka uncool metal. Unblack metal takes the coolness of black metal and combines it with the shittiness of Christian metal. I think a better name than unblack metal or white metal would be brown metal because it all sounds like shit. Just because Jesus went from being black to white doesn't mean it's okay to do the same with metal. But that's exactly what bands like Horde, Ancestor, and Admonish did in the 1990s. It was pure evil. I like to think there's a special place in hell waiting for the members of these bands where they'll be forced to listen to Venom, Emperor, Merciful Fate, and other unchristian metal bands all day, every day, while Satan repeatedly stabs them in the balls with the head of an Ibanez RG. Unblack metal is an ungodly, uninspired sub-sub-subgenre that unbelievably sucks. It's undeniable that unblack metal is undesirable to most metalheads. They find it unpleasant, uninteresting, and unwelcome. So it's unsurprising that unblack metal is so unpopular. Listening to it makes me uncomfortable, even though some of it is unintentionally kind of funny. But since there's a virtually unlimited number of sub-sub-subgenres out there, let's uncover another microgenre of rock, one that is undoubtedly cooler than Unblack Metal. Number 3. Crossover Thrash. Though cross-wearing metalheads might have crossed the line by creating Unblack Metal, there's another microgenre of rock that combines two of its best subgenres to form one kick-ass sub-sub-subgenre, crossover thrash. Often just called crossover, this microgenre combines the raw energy and unfiltered emotion of hardcore punk and combines it with the speed, intensity, and aggressive guitar playing of thrash metal. The whole microgenre is basically just testosterone on speed, and it's fucking awesome. Though hardcore punks and heavy metal jocks don't typically play nice together, hardcore and thrash do sound good together. In fact, they go so good together that there are actually two microgenres that combine them. While crossover can be thought of as punk-influenced thrash, the sub-sub-subgenre thrashcore can be thought of as thrash-influenced punk. And if you can't tell, this headbanging poser likes all of these sub-sub and sub-sub-subgenres. Wubba sub-sub. Speaking of headbanging, long before the History Channel went from playing shows about actual history to only shows about aliens, and the Science Channel switched from shows about actual science to only shows about Hitler, MTV, short for Music Television, actually played music videos and had a show devoted to heavy metal called Headbangers Ball. For years, the show's theme song and bumper music came from one of the most widely known crossover bands, Stormtroopers of Death, a group that included several members of the band Anthrax. If Sergeant D is coming up with a list of the best crossover bands, SOD is definitely on it. But they weren't the first ones to combine elements of hardcore punk with thrash metal. That honor is often attributed to the band Void. In 1982, Discord Records put out a split LP from Void and another DC area band called The Faith that's widely considered to be one of the first examples of crossover. Another band that pioneered the crossover sound was Discharge. This English punk band was so influential that there's actually a sub-sub-subgenre named after their style called D-Beat. I wonder if Sergeant D listens to as much D-Beat as he does crossover bands like SOD, MOD, DRI, SSD, and COC. What I'm sure of, though, is that Sergeant D thinks this next rock microgenre sucks COCK. Number 4. Post-punk revival. Just the name of this sub-sub-subgenre makes me cringe. Twice. Between postmodernism and Post-Malone, I already feel like I'm living in a post-apocalyptic world. To prevent further post-traumatic stress, we should send everything that starts with post to the post office to be shipped to the North Post. I mean pole. Secondly, if something needs reviving, that means it's dead. And since retro anything usually sucks, genres that die should stay that way. No name in music should have revival at the end of it that doesn't have Creedence Clearwater at the beginning. Post-punk revival is a sub-sub-subgenre of rock that emerged in the late 90s and early 2000s. This microgenre kinda sounds like the post-punk of the late 70s and early 80s, which kinda sounded like regular punk but more experimental. Both post-punk and its revived corpse of a microgenre contain elements of punk, just not the ones that really matter, like speed, raw emotion, and simplicity. But aside from those things, they're practically identical. Some bands that often get categorized as post-punk revival include The Strokes, The Killers, Franz Ferdinand, Interpol, and many others. Now, I actually like some of these bands, as well as several others that get lumped into the post-punk revival category. And there's no doubt that a band like Interpol is heavily influenced by post-punk bands like the Chameleons and The Sound. My problem is that none of these bands sound like actual punk rock. And I'm not even sure where the term post-punk revival came from, because 20 years ago, everyone just referred to those bands as indie rock as far as I remember, which is a much more appropriate name if you ask me. But it really doesn't matter if you call this microgenre indie rock, art rock, or punk rock revival, because it's been dead for a while. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of time until some band comes along and resurrects it. But I guess I should be happy it's not 100 years from now, because I'm sure by then genres like post-punk revival will exist. It's bad enough living in today's world where 99% of music sucks. Hey, that's what my comfortable, stylish, and affordable t-shirt says. Do you like this shirt? How about this one? Or this one? Or this one? Available in lots of colors, you can get these and other funny music-related shirts at MusicBSharp.com. Prices are going to be going up soon, so after this video, go check out all the hilarious merch at MusicBSharp.com. Number 5. Extr Tone. Weird, poorly named, and just downright bad microgenres aren't limited to rock music. Other genres have awful sub-sub-subgenres too. One of the weirdest, awfulest of these is Extr Tone, a sub-sub-subgenre of electronic music that truly sucks. Extr Tone is a sub-sub-subgenre of EDM that is played at absurdly fast speeds. It's basically speedcore on speed, which is already hardcore techno on crack. In this microgenre, a 1,000 beat per minute song is considered a slow jam. For comparison, Let It Be by the Beatles is about 100 beats per minute. Imagine playing that song 10 times faster. It would sound like one fast, blurry turd, just like every single Extr Tone song. Who the hell listens to this shit? Even after popping a handful of speed, smoking a big bag of meth, a crack rock the size of my bicep, banging a 10-inch line of 100% Peruvian white, and washing it all down with a pot of quadruple brewed coffee, Extr Tone is still played way too fast for my tweaked-out brain to comprehend. So I don't know why anyone would, or how anyone even could, listen to Extr Tone. If you ask me, it's extra shitty. But this microgenre does have a small, dedicated following. Extr Tone artists like Comprex, Noise Kick, MIDI, and Kokira each get anywhere from a couple thousand to tens of thousands of monthly listeners on Spotify. So let that serve as inspiration to those of you out there making terrible music. Even if it totally sucks, even if your music sounds like shit covered in crap, there are clearly enough people out there with bad enough taste in music that even you can amass at least a small following. Like so much other horrible music, Extr Tone started to emerge in the late 90s and early 2000s. Fortunately, it stayed underground where it belonged, unlike other bad subgenres that popped up around that time like poser punk and pussy rock. But Extr Tone wasn't the first bad subgenre of electronic music to synthesize its way into existence. Back when punk was still punk and new wave was still new, another microgenre emerged that would ride the new wave of electronic music straight into a giant rock. Number 6. Theal Wave. What a cool sounding microgenre. Not the music itself, just the name. But the second you actually put on any ethereal wave, you'll be waving goodbye to any coolness you might have mistakenly thought it had. Sometimes called ethereal goth, ethereal darkwave, or just ethereal, in the early 80s, this microgenre spreads like a bacterial infection. It's a subgenre of darkwave, which is basically a combination of new wave and post-punk. Ethereal wave combines darkwave with gothic rock to form a sad, wimpy, and whiny, albeit unique, subgenre of electronic rock. Bands like Susie and the Banshees and the Cocteau Twins are often credited with helping to define the ethereal sound. Personally, I prefer the cereal sound myself. I'd rather listen to someone crunching on a big bowl of Cookie Crisp with their mouth open than to listen to an ethereal wave band like This Mortal Coil or Black Tape for a Blue Girl. To me, they all sound like even worse versions of Depeche Mode. So I wouldn't suggest putting on any ethereal wave around me, because it kicks me into fight or flight mode. Actually, fight then flight mode. First, I beat your ass for putting on bad music. Then I send your stereo flying out the window. For as long as ethereal wave has existed, people like me have been making fun of it. At least one music journalist in the 80s called ethereal swirly girly music, and others have contemptuously referred to its fans as romantic goths and cloud gazers. Since ethereal wave is basically just shoegaze with drum machines and tons of digital effects clouding up the sound, the name fits. I mean, how much reverb, echo, and delay does ethereal wave really need anyway? Like, I can understand wanting to use loads of effects to try to obscure this microgenre's terrible lyrics and mask its awful instrumentation. But there comes a point where it's too much, and instead of masking the shittiness of ethereal wave, all those wishy-washy echoes and whatnot only amplify it. Even though I'm always quick to rag on my friends who listen to microgenre number 6, those who know me best know that they can quickly shut me up with 6 simple words. Don't you listen to the Smiths? They know I can't defend listening to a band with lyrics just as melancholy, introspective, and, well, just plain cheesy as the ethereal crap they listen to. But at least the Smiths had good enough sense to break up after a few years. There are ethereal wave bands that formed in the 80s still out there playing today. And they all really ethereally suck. Number 7. Punkabilly. Besides smelling bad and being looked down upon by the general public, hillbillies and punks don't have much in common. But this last subgenre combines elements of hillbilly rock with punk rock to form a new microgenre of hillbilly punk called Punkabilly. You can think of it as being kind of like a cross between Billy Idol, Billy Bragg, Billy Harlan, Billy Gibbons, Billy Milano, and Billy Joe Armstrong. In other words, Punkabilly combines elements of rock, folk, country, and bluegrass with the speed, aggression, and lyrical subject matter of punk rock. On paper, this sounds like it could be kinda cool. In reality, most Punkabilly sounds like Elvis on crack trying to perform after getting cracked in the throat with a billy club by Billy the Kid. Just ask any billy goat, and they'll tell you how bad it is. Punkabilly is an offshoot of psychobilly, which is an offshoot of rockabilly, which is a subgenre of rock and roll that emerged in the 1950s. Now, some people use the terms punkabilly and psychobilly interchangeably to basically just mean faster, more aggressive rockabilly. And that's fine for you unsophisticated hillbillies out there. But I see psychobilly as being a broad subgenre of rockabilly with distinct subgenres of its own based on lyrical content. While psychobilly's lyrics tend to lean more towards science fiction and horror, punkabilly's lyrics tend to be more political and socially critical. And while I'm being analytical, I'll also mention gothabilly, which is another offshoot of psychobilly that incorporates gothic themes with the rockabilly sound. Whether you think of them as being distinct or not, psychobilly, punkabilly, and gothabilly all emerged in the 1970s. Bands like the Meteors and the Cramps paved the way for later billy bands like Necromantics, Tiger Army, and the Reverend Horton Heat to thrive in the coming decades. And to this day, the billy microgenres maintain a dedicated following of fans who dress like it's the 50s and talk like it's the 40s, but otherwise act like any other 21st century asshole. If you ask me, punkabilly is kinda silly, but this microgenre doesn't seem to take itself too seriously, which is good, because neither do I. I'll admit though, every once in a while I'll listen to the Cramps or put on some Horton Heat, but I can only take so much punkabilly before my ears cramp up. They can do that, and I need to put on some crossover thrash to get them back to normal. And now that I've talked about sub-sub-subgenres as if they're real things for the past 10 minutes, I'm going to take 10 seconds to tell you how stupid and fake music categorization is. None of this shit really matters. The only thing that matters is what you like to listen to. To me, there are really only two genres: stuff I like and stuff that sucks. Categorizing music any further is just drawing arbitrary lines in the sand for people to endlessly argue about. Sure, organizing music into different groups can help you find new music that sounds kinda similar to stuff you already like, but it can also prevent you from discovering new music you might like that's totally different than what you're currently listening to. So instead of wasting your time arguing with friends about whether or not Blink-182 is punk, they're not, or if Interpol is art rock, indie, or post-punk revival, maybe spend less time arguing about music and more time enjoying it. Or not, it's up to you. Just know that music isn't the only thing that can be categorized. People can too. You're either the type of person who likes listening to music, or you're the type who prefers to listen to themselves talk about music. Or, even worse, you're the type who listens to others talk about music on YouTube and TikTok. A real psycho. Billy.
You're so annoying.
If you like these videos and want to help support this channel, visit my brand new Patreon page where I'll be adding exclusive bonus content, behind-the-scenes footage, and more. Link in the description. If you like this shirt, it's available in lots of colors and sizes at MusicBSharp.com, along with lots of other funny music-related merch. Link also in the description. And if you'd like to hear some of my music, click that link in the description or search for this dude on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you listen to music.